The classroom was already laughing before he even reached the board. Not loud laughter, the quiet kind, the kind that stings more. Marcus Reed stood near the last row, backpack hanging from one shoulder, eyes fixed on the floor. He had transferred mid-semester, which already made him a target. Quiet, tall, hoodie instead of collared shirts. Wrong in every way this elite university classroom expected. At the front, Professor Alan Whitmore adjusted his glasses and smiled. "Well," he said, tapping the chalk against the board, "since you seem so confident sitting back there, Marcus, why don't you help us?" A few students turned in their seats. Some smirked, some whispered. Marcus looked up, surprised. "Sir?" Whitmore nodded toward the board where an equation already covered half the black surface symbols, layered over symbols, integrals nested inside limits, the kind of math problem students avoided eye contact with. "This," the professor said calmly, "is not in the syllabus. It's not even in the textbook." The room grew quieter. "It's something I usually save for graduate-level discussions." Whitmore continued, "But I thought it would be educational." Marcus felt his throat tighten. Whitmore's smile widened just enough to be noticed. "Go on," he said. "Show us what you can do." Marcus hesitated. He wasn't stupid. He knew what this was. A setup. He had answered one question earlier in the week correctly, while others struggled. Since then, the looks had changed. Curiosity mixed with irritation, especially from Whitmore. Marcus slowly walked toward the board. The chalk felt cold in his fingers. Behind him, the room buzzed softly. "He's dead." "No way. That problem's insane." Whitmore leaned against the desk, arms crossed, relaxed, confident. "Take your time," he said. "This isn't easy." Marcus stared at the equation. To everyone else, it looked impossible. To him, it looked familiar. His mind drifted for half a second. Not to numbers, but to nights at the kitchen table with scrap paper. To problems his mother printed from free. Online forums because she couldn't afford tutoring. To silence, broken only by pencil scratches. He exhaled. Still, he didn't write. The pause stretched. Whitmore checked his watch theatrically. "Having trouble?" Marcus shook his head slightly. "No, sir." A few students chuckled. "Then why aren't you solving it?" Whitmore asked. Marcus turned. "Because," he said carefully, "this equation assumes a constraint that isn't stated." The room stilled. Whitmore blinked. "Excuse me?" Marcus pointed at the board. "The third term. It only converges if the boundary condition is adjusted." Silence. Whitmore straightened. "That's not relevant," he said quickly. "Proceed." Marcus nodded. "Okay." He turned back to the board. And finally, he began to write. Not fast, not showy, precise. Each line flowed into the next, like he'd seen this path before. The whispers stopped. Someone dropped a pen. Whitmore's smile faded. Just a little. Marcus reached the midpoint of the problem, then stopped. He tilted his head, erased one line, rewrote it differently. The professor took a step forward. "What are you doing?" Whitmore asked. Marcus didn't turn around. "Fixing it," he said. The class leaned in, because for the first time, it was no longer clear who was being tested. And Whitmore realized, far too late, that this wasn't embarrassment unfolding. It was something else, something he hadn't planned for. The chalk stopped moving. Marcus stepped back from the board, just slightly, as if he needed distance from what he had written. Lines covered the blackboard now, clean, logical, confident, not the frantic scribbles of someone guessing. The room felt different. Too quiet. Professor Whitmore cleared his throat. "That's an interesting approach." "Interesting." That word landed wrong. Marcus turned slowly. "Is it incorrect, sir?" Whitmore adjusted his glasses again. His eyes scanned the board. Once, then twice. He didn't answer. A student in the front row leaned toward his friend and whispered, "Wait, it actually works." Whitmore heard it. His jaw tightened. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," he said sharply. "You're skipping a justification step here." Marcus nodded. "I didn't skip it. I simplified it." He walked to the side of the board and pointed to a small section, Most of the class hadn't noticed. That transformation only holds if you apply the dominated convergence theorem before substitution. Otherwise, it breaks. Silence. Whitmore's fingers clenched behind his back. That's a graduate-level concept, he said. Marcus shrugged slightly. Yes, sir. A few students exchanged looks. Whitmore felt heat rise in his face. And where exactly did you learn that? The question hung in the air. Marcus paused. I read, he said simply. The professor let out a short laugh. You read. Marcus didn't respond. Whitmore walked closer to the board now, standing shoulder to shoulder with him. Up close, the difference was obvious. Whitmore's confidence was forced. Marcus's was quiet. Whitmore picked up another piece of chalk. If you're going to correct the problem, he said, then finish it. Marcus nodded again. He wrote the next line, then the next. Numbers and symbols collapsed into something elegant, something inevitable. The class followed each movement now. No phones, no whispers. 10 minutes passed. Then Marcus wrote a final line and stepped back. That's the solution, he said. No applause, no laughter, just stunned stillness. Whitmore stared. He erased nothing. He couldn't. Instead, he said, this result contradicts the standard solution. Marcus turned. Only if the initial condition is fixed. But it wasn't. Whitmore swallowed. A girl in the back raised her hand slowly. Professor, I think he's right. Another voice followed. Yeah, I checked the assumption. Whitmore snapped. Enough! The word echoed. This class is not a debate forum, he said. Marcus, take your seat. Marcus hesitated. Sir, I said, take your seat. Marcus obeyed. But something had already shifted. Whitmore returned to the desk, but his lecture stumbled. He avoided the board, avoided eye contact. Students kept glancing at Marcus, at the quiet guy who just rewrote an impossible problem like it was unfinished business. As the bell rang, Whitmore called out, Marcus, stay back! The room emptied slowly. Whitmore stood facing the board, hands on the desk. Where did you really learn math like this? He asked quietly. Marcus didn't answer right away. Does it matter? He finally said. Whitmore turned. For the first time, there was no smile, only uncertainty. Because deep down, the professor already knew the truth. The student wasn't lucky. He wasn't guessing, and he wasn't finished yet. The door clicked shut behind the last student. The classroom felt smaller now. No audience, no laughter, no safety net. Professor Whitmore stood with his back to Marcus, staring at the equation still written across the board. He hadn't erased it. He couldn't bring himself to. You embarrassed me, he said finally. Marcus remained by his desk, calm, still. I didn't mean to, Marcus replied. I just answered. Whitmore turned sharply. You knew what you were doing. Marcus met his eyes. I knew the math. Silence stretched between them. Whitmore exhaled slowly. You don't belong in this class. The words were cold, measured. Marcus nodded once. I know. Whitmore frowned. Then why are you here? Marcus reached into his backpack. Not dramatically. Not to prove anything. He pulled out a thin folder. Worn edges. Old tape on the spine. He walked to the desk and placed it down. I didn't apply here, Marcus said quietly. I was recruited. Whitmore scoffed. By who? Marcus opened the folder. Inside were letters. Scholarship approvals. Competition rankings. Recommendation emails. Whitmore's eyes scanned them, then stopped. His face changed. At the top of one page was a seal. National Mathematics Olympiad. Gold medalist. Whitmore's breath caught. That was years ago, he whispered. Marcus nodded. I was 15. Whitmore flipped to the next page. MIT Research Internship. Accepted. Declined. Then another. Cambridge Invitational Fellowship. Deferred. His hands trembled. Why would you decline these? Whitmore asked. Marcus's voice stayed steady. My mother got sick. Silence. I stayed, Marcus continued. Worked nights. Studied online. Entered open competitions under a different name. Whitmore sank into his chair. You solved problems people twice your age couldn't, he said, almost to himself. Marcus said nothing. Whitmore looked up slowly. Then why didn't you say anything in class? Marcus thought for a moment. Because, he said, people listen to answers, not resumes. Whitmore swallowed. He stood, walked to the board, picked up the eraser, then stopped. He turned back to Marcus. I set that equation to break you, he said. Marcus nodded. I know. And instead, Whitmore continued, voice cracking slightly, you showed me something. He stepped aside. For the first time, he gestured toward the board, not in challenge, but in respect. I was wrong, he said. The words hung in the air. No applause, no dramatic music, just truth. Whitmore erased the board slowly, each line disappearing. When he finished, he placed the chalk down carefully. You should be teaching this class, he said quietly. Marcus picked up his backpack. I already am, he replied. He walked toward the door. Before leaving, he paused. You gave me an impossible problem, Marcus said. I just solved the one you didn't see. He opened the door. The hallway noise rushed in, then faded. Whitmore stood alone in the silent room, staring at a clean board, and understanding, for the first time, that the lesson had never been about math.